Good morning. Today let's talk a mystery about tomato, and I'm going to show you a couple of unexpected tomato plants. And I'm also going to do a little bit of footage at the greenhouse I talked about last week, and I took a little footage then, but the footage got lost. Okay, here we go. Alright, here's the problem with the old greenhouse. The greenhouse, and this was a Harbor Freight, and it was very inexpensive, the panes blow out of it. And it's such a small little narrow channel, there's nothing that really locks them in. And it's such a small little narrow channel, it's very hard to get anything in there that would really hold them. And so, like I say, it just this spring, there's paint out of the backside too. This spring I had plants in the greenhouse early this spring, and panes blew out and everything froze. Okay, which brings me to tomato mystery. Well, alright, this year I had a bunch of these little peat pots planted in my greenhouse, and of course they all froze. So I just had to start more plants. So what I did was I grabbed a bunch of these peat pots like this that had been used once, and I replanted them later on with watermelon seeds to start on my back porch for watermelon plants. Well, not surprisingly, one of the pots that the watermelon didn't sprout, actually what sprouted was a tomato plant. And I'm going to take you over to the garden and show it to you. All right, this little plant popped up in that pot, and that's a tomato. And I think it's a brandywine. I'm not sure, but I think so. I had planted delicious and brandywine, and this is apparently a seed that didn't sprout at first, but then later on when I replanted the pots, popped back up. I thought it was kind of a neat little mystery. It's either a brandywine or it's a variety called delicious. Hopefully we'll find out. I don't know how well it will do. I've never set out tomato plants this late in the year, but what the heck, we're giving it a shot. It can't hurt anything. All right, now on to the next one. Now this little tomato plant here, and he's not huge, but he's doing okay. This is just a volunteer. This is where I had tomatoes last year, and he popped up. Now, that would be a Rutgers, because that's what I had last year. And in this case, what I'm going to do with him is I'm just going to let him grow. I put a little extra mulch around him, and he seems to be doing okay. But there's no stake here. I always stake my tomatoes right when I set them out, because you don't want to go in and pound something into the ground and disturb the roots after they're growing. Well, being he's already here, and because I'm in all mulch beds, because I'm a Ruth Stout type gardener, I'm just going to let him sprawl. That's one advantage to this way of growing. If you've got room, you can just let them sprawl on the mulch. It won't hurt them. They'll continue to grow. They'll do fine. I've done this before years ago, and it was okay. So that's what's going on with this little tomato. Little quick shot of a collard seedling I just put out for fall. I put out 3 of these. They're collard greens I really enjoy, but I've had them and cooked them in the summer, and they are always a little bitter. But here a couple of years ago I had collard greens that had survived through the summer, and gosh, they was bug-it, and it was terrible. But then come fall, come like October, all of a sudden they were putting out big, new, pretty leaves. They were doing great. There's green beans around the edge here. They were doing great, and I went ahead and plucked and cooked some of them. And to my amazement, they were very mild. They almost just tasted like cabbage. So I decided, hey, from now on, collard greens is going to be a fall crop. Now, one more thing. When I pulled up those sad-looking dead, what appeared dead plants the next spring, I noticed that, wait a minute, there was some green growth that had been kind of down in the mulch, emitting from those plants. So this time I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave them in the garden and let them get started into next spring and see if they come back. I've read several times since then that depending on the situation, collards sometimes, go for 2 years or more. So we'll just see what happens. All right, now I'm going to take you and show you my tomato mystery. Okay, this tomato plant, and I don't know if you can see it very good. I'm trying to see, got bit off. I'm amazed. This is actually, probably 24 inches off the ground. And unfortunately, this plant was being grown as a single stem plant. So there aren't any side shoots to come up to replace that tomato plant. Doesn't have any fruit on it, so that's just a zero for now. Here's the one next to it. You can see it's much taller. Well, the top off this one just got bit out. So I don't know. I just don't know what's going on here. It amazes me. It's too high or too tall for most of the little pests that are around here. It almost looks like a deer came along and did it. But I'm not in the country. I'm in town, and I've never seen a deer get this far into the city limits. Not impossible, but something just bit the top right out of the top of the plant, about 18 inches to 2 feet up off the ground. So if you've got an opinion what might have done it, let me know, so I'll kind of know what to guard against next year. Well, all right, that's all the tomato mystery. Well, okay, that's it for today. Not much going on. It's a really, really nice morning out this morning. It's almost cool. So I'm out fiddling around, doing things. I just thought I'd show you those two plants. I thought that was, or those three. I thought that was interesting that, everybody gets volunteers in their garden, and usually it's something you don't want and you hoe it out. But in this case, Rutgers tomatoes are not indeterminate. They don't grow all summer long. They have their fruit, and then they pretty much fizzle out. Sometimes they last longer into the season than others. But in this case, okay, that'll give me one more tomato plant that'll come on a little later than the rest, and it'll extend that pick season. So I was kind of happy about having a little volunteer there. The other tomato, like I say, I don't know if he's going to make it or not, if it'll mount to anything. I've never set out a tomato this late. But I just thought it was interesting that that seed stayed in that pot, didn't sprout the first time around, and then later on popped up in a pot that miraculously that watermelon seed didn't sprout. So, he grew right along with the little watermelon sprouts, and I decided, what the heck, let's put him out, let's see what happens. And then, of course, we had the little mystery with the tomato plant that's bitten out. It's unfortunate that was one that I was training as a single stem plant, so I'd plucked off all the suckers. If I'd had a sucker left, I could have let it grow, and that would become then the growing tip, and the tomato would keep going. In this case, unfortunately, that one tomato plant's just pretty much gone. So that's all, folks. It's just showing you a couple of little mysteries, and I wanted to show you a picture of the greenhouse so that you'd understand why when you go to Harbor Freight and you buy a greenhouse for $200-300, they work good, they're nice, But you know, they just don't last forever. And you kind of put them in knowing that, knowing it's going to be kind of a temporary thing. I'd never had a greenhouse before. This is the first one I've ever had. I enjoyed it, but in the end I decided maybe that wasn't the most practical thing for me to fit my style of gardening. Well, all right, folks, that's it for today. Y'all have a quality day.